The $2.5 trillion question in the space right now is, how much Bitcoin does America really hold? We've seen rumors, speculations, conspiracy theorists, and even paid bounties and investigations. But today, we're going to be exploring why what Scott Bessent just said on the national news might finally reveal the truth about America's Bitcoin holdings. Let's get into the clip.
We've got the large gold holding. I doubt we're going to revalue it, but we are going to keep it there, again, as a store of value for the American people. We've also started to get into the 21st century, a Bitcoin strategic reserve. We're not going to be buying that, but we are going to use confiscated assets and continue to build that up. We're going to stop selling that. I believe that Bitcoin reserve at today's prices is somewhere between 15 and 20 billion.
And Mr. Secretary, all of these ideas to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet of America, is that partly the beginnings of this sovereign wealth fund that you spoke about in your hearing back in January?
I think that these are all standalone ideas, and that as we get more into them, it will require legislation. We'll do it through statute to create a fund to.
All right, guys, a lot to unpack there. And of course, I'm not alone. I got Sophie here, the wonderful internet Sophie, our new superstar here, AKA the better half of Nico. And then we got Terence Michael, Bitcoin educator, ex-real estate, ex-Hollywood. I'm sure you guys have seen his videos on Twitter. He's the guy skateboarding, explaining about Bitcoin. It's really been going viral. All right, guys, I do need to kind of unpack a lot of things here. There was 3 really big ideas that we heard from U.S. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent in this clip that just dropped this morning. The first one, which was all the speculation, was this idea maybe the Fed's going to revalue their gold. Maybe they're going to have a reevaluation here, because we all know the gold holdings that they have is at levels that are like 100 years old here. And so now apparently, they're saying we're probably not going to do that. But Lawrence Lepard noted something really interesting here. And he goes, 3 months ago, it went from we are not going to revalue gold to today it's doubtful that we're going to revalue gold. So interesting reveal here. There's a lot to unpack. And actually, Terence, let's just start here. The idea of revaluating gold to potentially buy Bitcoin as a budget neutral way of acquiring Bitcoin, it's really going to get destroyed by the next point of this, this clip here. But what's your idea on this? Is Larry right here? I know you're a huge fan of Larry. It does seem like they are changing, or rather moving the goalpost here.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think anyone in the government knows how much gold we have in Fort Knox, or if we even have the gold, right? So I think that's a huge problem. It's like, why were we seeing so much gold being shipped from other countries right when Trump said we're going to do an audit, or Elon said we're going to do an audit? So first of all, I don't know how much we have, or how long it's going to take them to do that. And then what are the geopolitical consequences of suddenly reevaluating the gold? Like, that might sound good to us, but what happens when all of the other nation states start reevaluating their gold? And then, since obviously it's not on chain like Bitcoin, there's no transparency. There's no way to audit other than just what people say. So suddenly we're just having like one of the biggest poker games of people saying how much gold they have. So suddenly reevaluating gold to me is almost like paper gold on steroids. Like, hey, we've just reevaluated the gold, everybody. Now we have 40 trillion in gold. So that's the biggest issue. I feel like the only people that might know how much gold we have are like the 2 guards standing outside the door. But what's it going to take to get information from them?
Yeah, no, 100%. And then the second part I want to hit real quick before we get into kind of the more juicier stuff here is this is like what the headline is here, which is, I think Scott Bessent slipped up here, and it really does confirm a lot of the rumors we've been talking about. Remember, about a month ago, we got a Freedom of Information Act, statement from the U.S. Marshals, and it really started to hit the rumor mill of how much Bitcoin does the U.S. actually hold. At the time, we were saying if the U.S. Marshals hold all of the Bitcoin that the U.S. claims, it was like 40 or 50,000 coins. Now, Scott Bessent said something completely different, which is our goal or Bitcoin that we hold currently in the strategic Bitcoin reserve is valued around $15 to $20 billion, which is interesting when you do the math. Now, of course, the kind of idea is, or so far, again, as Terence was saying, we really are doing a trust us bro moment here. Allegedly, the U.S. has around 198,022 Bitcoin. I know it went as high as they potentially had 210,000 Bitcoin. And if you do the math, I did do some, back of the napkin math here. And I'm using the numbers from Bitcoin Treasury because that's as confirmed as we have here. So allegedly, if the U.S. holds 198,082 Bitcoin at the current price, which is roughly around 118,000, that means that the U.S. holdings is around $22.66 billion. Now, if you kind of go on the lower end of what Scott Bessent was saying, again, remember, he said we hold about $15 to $20 billion of Bitcoin. So $5 billion. Oh, this one's supposed to be divided, guys. I did do the divide one here. All right. So don't fact check me. $5 billion divided by the current price of Bitcoin, 118 is $118,000, which means based on, some rough speculative math here, that's somewhere between 40,000 less Bitcoin that they claim to have, or rather that we assume they have. And we've seen some higher speculations of potentially maybe they hold, I don't know, 20. What is this? Alex Thorne says maybe about like 80 to 40,000 less Bitcoin. So we really have no idea, but it sounds like we have a lot less Bitcoin than we thought. So maybe it's in the 150,000 range that they actually have, which is a lot of the speculation we've been talking about. People have been wondering, where has all the Bitcoin come? Why isn't the Bitcoin price going up? Is this paper Bitcoin? If these numbers, if he did actually just leak, if he did just leak how much Bitcoin they actually hold, we might hold a lot less Bitcoin than they claim. And now that means we probably hold less Bitcoin than China, which is not really setting us up for becoming the quote unquote Bitcoin superpower of the world. So that's, I think that's the big speculation that hit on Twitter right now is like, okay, he said 15 to 20 billion. It sounds like we sold a lot more Bitcoin than they claim. That's the second point of this that we're going to talk about for a moment. And then the big kahuna is the last one, I believe. So, Sophie, let's start with this. You've been following along on this story with us. Did he just leak how much Bitcoin they actually hold? Look, maybe I'm speculating. Maybe I'm reading between the lines here. Maybe I'm just trying to, give some good content for you guys. But it sounds like he said we probably sold about 40 to 50,000 coins.
My instinct, because I'm not going to pretend that I really know what's going on in Scott Bessett's head, is that Scott Bessett is a politician at the end of the day. He is working for the Trump administration. A lot of Trump himself, and a lot of his followers and donors, they love gold. So when you say that you're going to revalue gold, not only does that make gold a little bit, unstable by talking about that, what does that say about the US dollar? When gold goes up, people start to lose a little bit of faith in the dollar. And eventually that's what we want to happen, but with Bitcoin. And all these central banks, they live and die by confidence. It's purely a proof of stake system. So, I think that all of this news that has been favorable to Bitcoin has maybe they got some calls about this and they said, listen, chill with the gold FUD here. Chill with the whole revaluing gold thing. And I think that, there is a reason why he is on legacy media talking about this. And that reason might be to just balance the narrative. Maybe they did sell that amount of Bitcoin, but the reality is we don't actually know. We don't even know how much gold there is in our reserves. So how could we really know how much they've sold? I'm very bullish on the fact that they're going to keep buying. We're seeing huge institutions buy. Harvard is buying. Brown is buying. BlackRock keeps buying. Coinbase is about to make a massive purchase. David Bailey. All of these people are, signaling towards purchasing Bitcoin. So why wouldn't the US government do the same?
I mean, big question. Scott Bessent very clearly said we are not buying more, which is the second part. But Terence, I want to get your thoughts on if Scott Bessent just leaked how much the U.S. actually holds and what the implications are here.
Someone just said your unbuttoned shirt is the recession indicator.
It's hot down here.
Sorry, it distracted me. Well, so yeah, I agree with a lot of what Sophie just said, and I'll probably give a little bit more measured response because I think there's, we're all just trying to guess. And one, we know we can't trust politicians. We know they're being politicians. They're playing a poker game. Going back to that analogy, and so one, if the nation state wants to stack Bitcoin, and I do believe that there are some good people in the administration that absolutely do want to do that do understand it. There aren't many, but I believe that there are. One, why would you telegraph that to everybody else, right? Yeah. That we get. Like, that just is stupid. Two, I don't know when he's evaluating this 15 to 20 billion he's talking about, but just 3 months ago we were at 101,000. At 101,000, you take his figure, well, that's the 198,000 Bitcoin that we're looking at there. Three, we don't really know how much Bitcoin there is. And again, Bitcoin is transparent and it's audible and it's on chain. And so it's like, we either have Bitcoin or we don't. If it's custodied somewhere, we don't have the Bitcoin. Someone's telling us we have the Bitcoin. So we either have it or we don't. So to me, similar to the gold, I don't know why we can't just say how much Bitcoin we have, except for game theory. And
it's because politicians are allergic to transparency.
Well, exactly. They're allergic to transparency, but I also think that we do have to play a game here. And here's why. This game comes with certain steps, and we already know what the first step is, which Bessent isn't talking about here, but look at the Genius Act that was passed. We have to support the dollar. We need people to buy our debt, and stable coins are the next phase. For us to come out now and to say that we're stacking and we're buying a lot more Bitcoin sort of goes against that for all of the people that we need to buy our debt for, to pay for our wars, to pay for our interest costs. I mean, what are we at? Almost like $1 trillion a year, getting close to that. So I believe that whether they're doing it or not, we're not going to know. And they're not going to be able to show us any on-chain addresses. There's no proof of reserves of Bitcoin. They need to, but by him telegraphing this, there's nothing but good news. There's no bad news other than us based Bitcoiners going like, what the hell you say we're going to buy Bitcoin? At the same time, look, we do want to separate money from state. We do want to separate money from trust. And this is actually proving why we want to separate money from trust. This is great. Let the people that Bitcoin was made for, how Satoshi designed it, stack as much as they can to get in front of nation states. We're going to have plenty of time. I just still don't believe that they're not stacking. I don't believe what he's saying. I think there's enough people that understand the implications. They understand that Bitcoin is the new monetary system, but they have to support the dollar. Why would they not support the dollar? So, we can guess all day long, but just a little bit more measured response.
Yeah, I love the measured response because I go full bulltard maxi on
the
show. So, I need someone to balance me out here. And this is really, you mentioned a few things that are going to lead to the third striking thing we heard from this very short clip, which was he very deliberately said, and of course, he's a politician, maybe like you said, they don't want to telegraph what they're doing, and maybe they're publicly saying something and doing the complete opposite of it. But he did specifically say, we are not buying any Bitcoin, and the only way we are going to acquire more Bitcoin for the strategic Bitcoin reserve is basically by confiscating assets. Now, as a bulltard, not very trustful of the government, all I'm hearing here is they want to confiscate your Bitcoin, which is something we talk about here constantly. We all know the 6102 order around gold. Now, is this where we're headed? Did we all just get rug pulled by the U.S. government here? I think they've been stacking, but hearing this publicly, it doesn't make me feel that good. And then Kaiser kind of agrees with what I'm saying right now. He's quote tweeting this clip and he goes, as I've been predicting on Spaces, the U.S. scared shitless Bitcoin crushes the U.S. dollar and they're scrambling to work a stablecoin solution. Spoiler alert, it won't work. Only Bukele gets it. There's only one Bitcoin country. And on that idea of stablecoins, I know Terence just touched on it. We've been touching on this on the show for a while. We did also get this very interesting news around stablecoin that I think it all kind of combines here. So Cointelegraph tweeted this and he goes, update. The Bank Policy Institute urged Congress to close the Genius Act stablecoin interest loophole to prevent deposit flight. And you can see here, flight risk and opportunity costs. The Treasury Department issued a report in April estimating that stablecoins could lead to as much as $6.6 trillion in deposit outflows. Depending on whether stablecoins are able to offer interest or yield, with affiliates of stablecoin issuers or exchanges still being able to pay interest on stablecoins, the risk of significant deposit flight is even greater. And this is probably the point why it matters. Banks power the economy by turning deposits into loan. Incentivizing a shift from bank deposits and money market funds to stablecoins would end up increasing lending costs and reducing loans to businesses and consumer households. So putting all of this together, it is making a very interesting case, which a lot of Bitcoiners have been saying. The more, I would say, maybe cynical or pragmatic, realist, anti-politician Bitcoiners have been saying is like, look, they wanted you to vote for Trump, and this is why they embrace Bitcoin. Though we have heard the Trump family, make a lot of moves into Bitcoin. And this is probably why we're seeing through Congress a lot of the push through stablecoins right now. But that clip from Bessent saying, hey, we're not going to buy more, we're just going to confiscate your Bitcoin, that makes me like, yo, all right, I'm a complete red flag here. But I do actually believe that this could be publicly projecting something, because I, for a while, been saying I think the U.S. government has been acquiring Bitcoin. Maybe that's on an individual level. Maybe it's not on a federal level. And then when you really connect this with the fact that Bo Hines just stepped down, I was a lot more bullish when Bo Hines stepped down. I was like, yo, he's going into the private sector because he wants to acquire a bunch of Bitcoin, go work for a Bitcoin treasury company. With this news, I know Nico tweeted, he's like, this is probably why he stepped down, because maybe they aren't acquiring the Bitcoin. They're not going to revalue the gold. Sounds like they might want to confiscate your Bitcoin. It does make you wonder, and I know a lot of Bitcoiners' spidey senses are tingling right now, because this clip is really, I know Terence said it's all good news. This clip in itself sounds like a lot of bad news. So
you know what? I'm gonna agree with Terence and like keep it on the optimistic side.
I'm pessimist fields today. Wow.
Dang,
come on, Opti. Yeah.
Dang. No, because okay, you mentioned that Trump has, and his family, they've invested a lot in Bitcoin, but really they've invested in crypto. Remember that these are the people that launched Melania coin. Okay. They might be going all in, in the shitcoin casino and using that to buy Bitcoin. Like Bessent is talking about confiscating it, whatever. Remember that there are a lot of Americans out there, probably half of the country, that wouldn't agree with using any sort of budget or making any aggressive moves in the economy to buy Bitcoin because they don't understand it. They see Bitcoin as this asset that is similar to every other shitcoin. So, what if they have to say this again, like to kind of calm these people down? What if they're going to end up selling the other digital asset reserves they have in order to stack Bitcoin? There are so many ways that they can do this in a quote unquote budget neutral way. But the reality is that the everyday person does not understand it. They do not understand it. They don't follow it as closely as us or our viewers. And it's difficult for them to understand why the US government would be buying Bitcoin, because they're used to the monetary system that we've had our entire lives. So, I have often seen politicians say one thing and do another.
That's true.
I think that you should believe what they do and not what they say. So far, this administration has come through on every single promise that they have made, including freeing Ross, which was at the top of the list of priority for Bitcoiners. So I think we just have to watch what they do. And, what they say may be one thing, but don't be a normie. Don't be somebody who just watches legacy news and starts to get pessimistic. I think that we should hold out. Yesterday we reached a new all-time high. We should be extremely happy about that. And all of the news seems to be very bullish around this. So, F what Scott Bassett has to say. I don't believe these politicians. I'm going to keep stacking. And I completely disagree with Max Kaiser, to be honest. Like, there isn't just one Bitcoin country. The US can absolutely be the leader of Bitcoin in the world. And I'm very optimistic on making that happen.
Yeah, well said.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Sophie's the bulltard today, and I'm a pessimist. All right, okay. Terrence, what's your thoughts on all this?
I mean, look, politicians are bought and paid for by corporations, right? One of the biggest, wealth fund managers, the largest asset holders out there is BlackRock. BlackRock, Wall Street. I mean, look at the price today. Everyone's talking about how it's crashed. I mean, we're back to where we were a day and a half ago, right? And this is what happens whenever we make a surge to an all-time high. We have these tourists who aren't here for the right reason, who don't understand Bitcoin or don't know what they have. They don't view it as money. They view it as a trade. And so they're going to come and go. And so those traders got scared of, what Besant said or whatever, and they're out. But they are going to support it at minimum, whether we like it or not. The politicians are going to support Wall Street, and Wall Street wants Bitcoin. BlackRock wants Bitcoin. Pension funds want Bitcoin. We've got 11 ETFs. We've got all these Bitcoin treasuries. So aside from whether we like that or not, or whether we think they understand Bitcoin or not, the nation itself you have to view as a corporation, which it really is. Because look, if Bitcoin was made for individuals, I believe that a lot of individuals of the government, for them and their families, are buying Bitcoin, are stacking Bitcoin. I mean, you look at even RFK over there in the health sector. It's like he is stacking Bitcoin. He is a Bitcoiner. He saves in Bitcoin. As a government, it's all a big game. And by the way, I personally read, whether he really wrote it or not, back in the day, Trump's The Art of War. And if you read that book, like the strategy, the one thread that carries through that whole book is to not let your enemies know what you're doing, or to let them think you're doing the opposite. And so none of this surprises me. I do think that the government is stacking. Look, and I also don't think that they're saying they want to confiscate our Bitcoin. They're just saying that is the way that they have, per the executive order, to acquire Bitcoin right now that's budget neutral without them purchasing it. It's anything that's been confiscated, they can convert into Bitcoin. And that could be other crypto. That could be, whatever, cars, artwork, jewelry. So I'm just taking the optimistic, more measured approach to this, as much as, the conspiracy theorist in me would like to think otherwise.
Well, I forgot my tinfoil hat on today's show, but you guys know I love the tinfoil hat stuff. So look, I hope that Terence is right. I like, on the one hand, if I am being less cynical and maybe less of a knee-jerk reaction here, I think everything you said is more measured and does seem to kind of play into what we're saying. And Sophie said it. And I think that's probably like the biggest signal here. It's like, watch what they do, not what they say. And, I am kind of basing everything on just what they're saying as well, not just what they're doing. But if you look at what they're doing, it does paint a more optimistic picture here. But if you're listening to what they're saying, like you said, maybe it is an art of the deal moment here. Maybe this is them kind of get people off their tail and get, hide their smell here. So I'm hopeful. I want to be hopeful that this is going on. But the very, hardcore tinfoil hat wearing Bitcoiner in me is like, did they just say they're going to confiscate our Bitcoin? This is why you need to self-custody your Bitcoin. This is why we constantly talk about this.
100%.
Is, being paranoid on this factor. It's totally like what you should be doing. Let's see. Okay.
I love what Economic Signa said. Using tariff revenue is budget neutral. they're stacking. This is deflection. I completely agree with that. There are so many other moves that this administration has done that have been generating income here in a way that, could only be beneficial to put into Bitcoin. And that was also a really good point, Terence, that they can be confiscating. This happens every single day, whether we like it or not. We all disagree with civil forfeiture, but it happens every single day. And these are ways that, Bitcoin can be accumulated by the US government. And to be honest, I would rather have that as a country than, it stay in cash where it's just literally going to lose more value than anything else.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just because I don't have much faith in government. I'm like, what do they ever do right? And I know I see B for Vendetta, our boy over at Bitcoin Way. He's like, the U.S. just rug pulled everyone on Bitcoin. Maybe I'm falling into wanting to believe the bad stuff. Just like, let's get the fight over with. Let's just know what's going on. Let's get some clarity on where we are right now. Maybe I was getting a little icky with oh, wait, what did it say? What that?
Well, think about it. Unless everybody is done stacking and they're happy with the amount they have, if the government were to announce the opposite and said, hey, we're now buying the full million that we said we would in the executive order, based on where the prices would go immediately, would you guys be happy with that? I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I want more Bitcoin, but I also want my Bitcoin stack to grow, but not that much. I want some dopamine back, Terence. I want a pump back, but I also don't want it to go up and forever right now and never come back down here. So
long time preference.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. We'll see what's really going on. All right, guys, we have a jam-packed show for you guys. I am going to sneak another news story into the numbers because Jack Dorsey did just unveil something that I think is probably the signal here. And then in the news, if you guys were on Twitter last night, you probably caught the Google saga. I'm going to cover that with you guys on today's show as well. And then in the culture, we got Terence here. And we're just going to be talking about content creation. And actually, he dropped a hot take on us earlier that he believes it is easier to orange pill boomers. So we're going to talk about that later because, I get a lot of flack for talking about boomers here on the show. Anyways, before we keep going, I do want to remind you guys to smash the like button. Of course, comment on the show. Is Opti being a pessimist here? Or is Terence and Sophie right? And then, of course, hit the smash or subscribe button. We drop the best content on you guys constantly. And of course, before we move on, I got to give a huge shout out to our boys over at Bitcoin Well. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. The reason we love them is for this very reason that we are so terrified about a 6102. They can never rug pull your Bitcoin. They have never lost Bitcoin because they never hold your Bitcoin. You send them your money, send them your fiat, and they send Bitcoin directly to your cold storage. So scan the QR code. Right now, you have a chance to win, I believe, what is it, $1,180 or something like that. 3 chances to win 1 million sats. And, of course, if you're sitting on the sidelines with a, burning pile of cash here, hit their OTC desk, the Infinite Well team, and you could smash by 50K of Bitcoin at one time. And, of course, they won't just let you buy the Bitcoin. They will give you white glove service so that you know what you're doing with that Bitcoin and you never rug pull yourself. All right, let's get into the second news story of today's show, which I think is huge.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
All right, here we go. I thought Sophie was going to talk.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, we want to give a shout out to 700 concurrent viewers on our YouTube channel. Shout out to you guys. We're about to hit 100K. If you haven't yet, please smash the like button and share this video with your friends. Anyway, let's go
and the 100 on Rumble. Let's not forget the Rumble and the, I don't know, 2,400 plus viewers on YouTube or views on YouTube.
I don't have those numbers.
Yeah,
you're
getting wrecked. Anyways, let's go over the numbers real quick.
740 now. We're winning.
Let's go. All right, so the current Bitcoin price is 117,660. And I don't know if you guys were watching the price last night, but it almost hit 124K. It was like 123. I think the high was 360, I believe it was. And then we got dumped on, and here we are. We're back to 117. So that was fun. That was fun while it lasted. It lasted for a minute. That was cool. Anyways, the current block height is 910,042. I repeat, 910,042. Current market cap is 2.34 trillion. And as of now, we are a negative 5.4% decline from all-time high. So that was fun. We're actually going to cover the market cap a little bit during the Google News story because I have another conspiracy theory here. But that's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about some good news here. Now, I know we don't really touch on Bitcoin mining on the show a lot, only when there's something that's really big that comes out. And I told you guys this was going to happen. I believe it was Monday when I kind of brought this up a little bit. But Jack Dorsey and Block, under their new company Proto, they just launched a new fully American-made Bitcoin miner. And apparently it was huge. They just did the release, like they did a video conference call earlier today before the show at like 10:30 Eastern time. So here's some of the breakdown of it. We have TFTC, and it goes, breaking, Block's Proto team announces Rig, a highly durable modular Bitcoin mining machine with easily replaceable hash boards, an open source software stack, and energy efficiency of up to 14.1 joules per terahash. A massive disruption to the mining hardware landscape. And just to confirm for you guys, this is all American-made Bitcoin chips to compete with Bitmain. And there's a good quote here by Jack Dorsey. He goes, we have a very close relationship with our vendors and manufacturers, and we are building in the United States. So if you aren't really familiar with the Bitcoin mining space, China has a hold on the Bitcoin mining space. They make the chips. Most of the big miners come out of China, like ASIC, Bitmain and MicroBT, Canaan. All the ASICs come from China. Now that Jack is bringing that to America, and apparently this new rig he dropped is next level. So I have Steve Barber. If you don't know Steve Barber, he's from Upstream Data. This is his take on it. Again, I'm not a miner. I'm not as well versed in the intricacies of ASICs, but this is huge news. Not only bringing ASIC chip manufacturing to the US here, but it seems to be more efficient. So great job on the hardware design. And here you guys can see this, kind of see it here. Nice to see the supplier actually listen to feedback from the industry. Power dense, ease of maintenance, repair in mind, nice square form factor, very well done. Hope the industry standardizes on this kind of modular design. Ridiculous to have to use different PSUs, fans, shells for every different miner. Curious if you can share more details and if any consideration for faster, cheaper repair. Looks like the clamshell style heat sinks, which is good. Wonder if any new innovations here. The specs, etc., etc., etc. But as Marty said on his Twitter, the bar for mining hardware and firmware has just been raised. This is where the signal is. So we are speculating a lot on the show, hence why I wanted to bring this on today's show. So there is some good news throughout all the crazy Opti tinfoil hat stuff going on the show today. But this is a huge story. So shouts out to Jack Dorsey. He's been doing some great work. Everything he's doing is great. And here, I'll pull this up before I pass this over to Terence here. We can see some kind of clips here. But Jack Dorsey with Cash App, Square, BitKey, Proto, he's kind of making one of the best Bitcoin companies right now. We all know he was head of Twitter. You guys may or may not like what he did at Twitter. Maybe he was forced in a corner there, but now maybe this is his redemption arc, just going all in on Bitcoin. We've seen him wear the Satoshi shirt everywhere. it seems like he's a true believer and putting his money where his mouth is, which I think is the biggest signal here. So I'm going to scroll through this website a little bit. And Terrence, what's your thoughts on this? I'm not going to ask Sophie because, Nico was the minor here. Sophie's just like they were loud,
I think these are really pretty.
Okay, there we go. Sophie's take. Maybe they're less loud and they're pretty. So
They're just
Sophie is like it heated the house.
yeah, exactly. So Terrence, I'm sure you're following along. I know you're following along on a lot of the different controversies and debates happening right now. What is the impact of Jack Dorsey bringing ASIC chip manufacturing to the U.S. and then also dropping such like a efficient and pretty device here? So I'm going to scroll through the website. You guys can see a couple of the screenshots. Hit it, Terrence.
I think it's great, and it's a move in the right direction. We know we need to decentralize mining. We need to decentralize the hash power for obvious reasons to keep Bitcoin a distributed trust system for our money. We hadn't thought about the hardware for a long time. And on one hand, I think, well, what does it matter? This is a chip from China. Like, how is that going to change things? But yes, we should have American-made products. We should bring this sort of innovation and ability to. I mean, look, when we have so much solar and so much wind in Texas, and people want to get into renewables, and a lot of the miners here, whether it's Mara or Riot or Bitdeer or whatever, they're making gobs of money, especially right now. I think the average that they can mine a Bitcoin right now is roughly between $60,000 to $70,000 based on the electricity that they've set up and based on where the price is. So right now they're at a time, which is good because they often go under depending on the difficulty adjustment. But right now they're at a time where they have these lots of cash, which is great. They don't have to sell all of their Bitcoin to exchanges, but this is the kind of stuff that they should be investing in. And sometimes Jack, I think, will become a loss leader on things. He was a loss leader at Twitter. He was a loss leader with Square, with Block, where it's like, you know what? I'm okay if I'm not going to make some money. This is the right thing to do. And we need people like that. Even Elon, even with Doge, was doing the same kind of things. Like, hey, look, I'm going to lose billions of dollars, but this is the right thing to do. So if we could do that and start distributing the hardware, distributing the chips, and distributing the hash power, that would be amazing. At the same time, we also have the exact same risk. We also don't want America to have too much hash power or too much manufacturing because, that could be the same sort of captured container as anywhere else.
Yeah, totally. Great take there. Really liked it. And to Sophie's, to me trolling Sophie, it says fanless PSUs and less fans on here. Where'd it go? The other one, fewer fans, fewer failures. So it might be quieter. Maybe Nico's gonna have to bring one over here.
Yeah, she can now sing. She can record her songs without all that noise.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel me.
The Bitcoin wife dilemma here. That's cool. You're making us money, but that thing's kind of loud. Can we not have it in the house, please? Maybe Jack is really making this for the wives.
If we put it in the baby's room, it might replace the white noise machine.
Yeah, no.
Jack makes beautiful products, right?
Yes.
The Square is a beautiful product. The BitKey, whether you think it's the right thing for you or not, is a beautiful product. So, I think it's good. And what is also great is it helps reach the retail level. If you look at a regular ASIC miner, like a what's Antminer or whatever, like that, it's not a pretty thing. Most people don't want to put that in their house. This looks kind of cool.
Yeah, no, great take. And yeah, their design team over at Block, I think it's like next to none. Everything they drop is great. Like, look, Cash App works really well. And a lot of Bitcoiners don't like to recommend Cash App, but Cash App works really, really well. A lot of like you said, the BitKey looks strange. It looks like alien technology. It's built really good. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want a little more cypherpunk type wallet, but it looks beautiful. Everything that they do over there, which really is I think people that watch the show know I love Beauty On. Just he's a savage, but he's constantly he's awesome. Yeah, he's constantly been saying for a while, Bitcoin hasn't really had that iPhone moment. And I think what you said, Terrence, is really the key. Like, Jack does think in those terms. He's like, how can I make whatever in Bitcoin that I'm working on level up to this thing, the iPhone here, that is just so easy to use. It's beautiful. It's sleek. It's intuitive. And like you said, I think he's really doing that right now with everything that he's building. So kudos to Jack. I know the Rumble crowd doesn't like him that much, but I'm a huge fan. I think he's doing great work. Block's turning out to be one of the best Bitcoin companies.
He's net positive. He's net positive.
Yes, two things can be true at the same time. Like you can dislike some aspects of someone while also giving them props for, I mean, Cash App. I have orange pilled so many of my friends through Cash App. I mean, not fully orange pilled them, but gotten them to buy Bitcoin and ask more questions and talk about self-custody and whatever. But he's definitely on the right path. Sometimes it takes, 100 tries before you find that right one, and he's still on that journey. Also, shout out to Mexica Hodl, who gave us a super chat. Opti and Nico, I think it would be a good idea to do a Simply Bitcoin in Spanish. We should set up a meeting.
We've talked about that for a while. Though I kind of do some pushback. We're already Simply Latino. I don't know how far we want to lean into that, but it's a good conversation. Like we will.
Believe me, we've thought about it. I actually had a conversation actually yesterday with my best friend because we were talking about making Simply Bitcoin in Spanish and like going over the names. How would we translate it and stuff? So it's a
conversation we're having, I guess.
Yeah.
So all right, Mexica Hodl. We should.
How do you say Bitcoin in Spanish?
Simplemente Bitcoin.
Whoa,
There we go. All right, guys. I'm going to keep it moving because I do have the Google saga going on. It's a very interesting news story that happened yesterday. It seems to be actually. Let's just get into it and we'll chat about it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
All right, guys. So this is where the saga starts. And the interesting part about this is right when this news story dropped, Bitcoin had just passed Google as the 5th largest market cap. It's not there now. If you guys want a fresh update here, we're currently at 7th because we dropped a little bit. But last night, when this news story did hit, we were above Google as the 5th largest asset by market cap. I think it was like 2.48 or something was the market cap. We went up to like 123, 360 or 600 or something like that. So for a brief moment, we did jump over Google as the 5th largest asset in the world. And then at that basically, it felt like to me last night when I saw that we had jumped Google as the 5th largest asset by market cap, this news dropped on Twitter. And this is the rage again. There is some irony that the tweet that the Lola Leeds company is called the rage because everyone did go full rage last night. But she dropped this, and it was new Google Play Store policy forces AML KYC on non-custodial wallets in the US, effectively banned non-custodial wallet developers from Pay Store in EU. And so going down the saga, here's her personal account. talking about this. Here, let me pull this up so you guys can read this. After regulation by prosecution, here comes regulation by monopoly. Google Play Store is banning all non-custodial wallets whose developers do not have a FinCEN registration, state banking license, or MiCA license. This means that in the U.S., all non-custodial wallets on the Play Store will have to employ AML and KYC, which would have been absolutely horrible here. That would have been a big L for us as self-custody advocates, but also for Google in general, and probably for adoption of Bitcoin at large. It would have been a lot harder for us to just get, hot wallets, phone wallets, so that we can take our Bitcoin and control our own money. And she goes, sounds bad. In the EU, it's even worse. MiCA licenses are not issued to services as simple as non-custodial wallets, effectively banning non-custodial wallet developers from the Play Store in the EU. As with all dumb AML ideas, it's of course the FATF that opened the door to this nonsense, claiming that even non-custodial / decentralized software could have some element of control over funds. The DOJ tried to enforce this quagmire with Samurai and Tornado Cash, and now we're seeing the largest app store in the world enforce it on its own. And of course, she's been very critical of the Trump administration. She goes, "Are you tired of winning yet?" So here we go. The United States, it goes, here's the blurb before. So the developer must be either A, registered with FinCEN as a money services businesses and with a state as a money transmitter, or B, a federal or state chartered bank entity. And in the EU, the developer must be authorized as a crypto asset service provider under the Markets in Crypto Assets, aka MiCA regulation, by a relevant national competent authority. Any other local legal requirements, including any national level restrictions or requirements beyond MiCA, must also be complied with. Now, here's like the initial reaction of all the Bitcoiners when this came out. Stefan Libera, this is really bad for self-custodial Bitcoin apps. Many self-custodial wallet developers would not be able to comply with these regulations. Pretty big loss on the self-sovereignty and privacy side of things. And this is what we've kind of been seeing with the Tornado Cash and the Samurai wallet case. Like, yes, maybe we are seeing a more friendly U.S. administration, but it also seems like we are on a new front right now, and the war is not so much about them accepting Bitcoin, but the war is on privacy. And we know they're embracing stable coins. And so that maybe this is, maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe this is them actually trying to, see what they can get away with. Anyways, Stefan Libera, Bitcoiners will probably have to open up their wallets and contribute to a lawsuit or massive lobbying effort to fix this somehow. And then again, Francis, of course, Bull Bitcoin in Canada. He goes, literally, none of them would be able to comply, even if they wanted to, which is outrageous. This is effectively a Google ban on self-custody. My hunch is that it will get reversed or amended because it's so outright insane. And I don't rule out it having been a communications mistake. And Peter Todd goes, most likely it's an intentional trial balloon that will go through if we don't raise hell. And this is where I think we kind of got a W here. Overreacting was the right approach because Jack tweeted this, and I think this was the first response. He saw this and goes, terrible. And then we got news from Google, the official Twitter account for Google, and it goes, thanks for flagging this. Non-custodial wallets are not in scope of Google Play's cryptocurrency exchanges and software wallets policy. We are updating the help center to make this clear. Lola coming back to
might as well have added, hope this helps.
Yeah, coming back to clear things up here. This was the saga for about a few hours on Twitter last night. Google has changed its Play Store policy in response to our reporting. Here's why this is a big deal for developers. Since our story yesterday, several people reached out to me about Google Play Store delisting non-custodial wallets well before the policy in question came into effect in July, asking for local licenses under what was previously known as their blockchain-based content policy. One of these wallets was Electrum Wallet, who thankfully documented their ordeal with the Google Play Store publicly. It seems that as soon as a local jurisdiction codified licensing requirements for software wallets, Google wanted to see that developers obtain said license, making no distinction between custodial and non-custodial wallets. If no license was provided, it appears that Google auto-banned flagged wallets for policy violations, leaving it up to the developers to prove that they did not need a license under local laws. In the case of Electrum Wallet, getting their wallet back into the Play Store took over 100 days. That's 100 days in which no new installs were possible, while existing users weren't able to pull updates. A big deal, seeing how some updates push critical security fixes. By fixing their newest policy to now specifically exempt non-custodial wallets, non-custodial wallet developers will no longer have to prove that they don't need a license if they are flagged, but can simply point to the fact that there are a non-custodial application referencing Google's own policy. And she goes, kicker, never thought I'd say this, but thank you, Google, for fixing this. And thanks to everyone who helped raise hell to make it happen. So
I told you there was a side of the country that does not believe in Bitcoin and does not like self-custody. For all we know, this could have been somebody inside of Google who, decided to change this and go rogue, or Google themselves are testing how far they can push the hornet's nest. They want to see what the reaction from the community is going to be if they did implement something like this, even though they know, because they are like the biggest tech company in the world, that this is something that cannot be stopped. Even if they wanted to, people will jump ship and get on another device, either on a computer, on whatever they have to do to be able to maintain self-custody. People are not going to go back, and they're not. And just because Google says, oh, we're going to make it harder for normies to do it, too late for all the Bitcoiners who have already opened their eyes and been orange pilled.
yeah, I mean, Sophie, you said something that reminded me of Google's model of, don't be evil. Well, it seems like they got their hand caught in the cookie jar here. And,
I think we crossed the Rubicon a long
Yeah,
time ago when they
obviously.
started getting paid by political parties to censor information and put certain things out there.
Okay, super base here. But yeah, to my kind of take is kind of what Sophie said. Like, I think they tried to push something past everyone, see what they could get away with, and then everyone freaking out about it. They had to really, really change quickly. And I think it's probably because Jack was the one to tweet. I know Blue Wallet tweeted about this. They did the same kind of boilerplate response here. But if this went unnoticed, it would have been really bad for self-custody, non-custodial wallets in the US, EU, worldwide in general. So interesting stuff coming out of Google. Terence, what's your thought on this? And then I do have one more interesting Google news story, which I think all of this combined together, you're like, what are they doing here?
They got dethroned in their market cap and took it personally.
That's hilarious.
For real. That was my tweet. And guys, I did some numbers yesterday. Okay. That was the tweet though. Anyways, Terence, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, maybe
did they do it by on purpose?
I mean, maybe Google realized that you can't regulate the secrets in my head, in your head. And all a Bitcoin wallet holds is secrets. Bitcoin wallets don't hold any dollars. They don't even hold any Bitcoin. They just hold secrets. And so going down that road is just a very bad road. And it's a bad road for a company that wants to be viewed as an innovator and wants to be viewed as something for the people. I mean, they originally, that's what they were, right? Even though they are one of the Mag 7 big companies out there, like, I still want to believe that they want to try to do the right thing. And it's possible that a lot of these people just aren't educated and they don't know. There's even quote unquote Bitcoiners out there that still don't fully self-custody or don't understand that it's impossible to own Bitcoin if you don't self-custody. If you don't self-custody, you don't have Bitcoin. That's the only way Bitcoin works. You have to hold your keys.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, that is ownership. Ownership of Bitcoin is possession.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that is the protest. That is how you fight back against this whole idea that one institution can just centralize all of the decisions that people make on a day-to-day basis. The way to fight back is exactly what Nico says every single day on this show, is to opt out of the financial system that enables them to do this. When you opt out, when you take away that power, and they realize that they're caught between a rock and a hard place, and they have to somehow pivot. And that's what this was. Make no mistake about it. They got dethroned with the market cap, and they decided to see how far they could push the hornet's nest. They decided to see how hard will these people fight back? How important is self-custody? And that's why it's everybody who's watching this duty to fight back as hard as you can. Make a lot of noise, call your representatives, make this, this is kind of like a violation of antitrust if you think about it. Because if you're saying like, I'm going to monopolize the way that people custody their Bitcoin or the decisions that they make with self-custody, because we're not going to allow their apps on our platforms, that is going a step way too far. I think that is wholly un-American, and Google needs to be checked. Their power needs to be checked. Absolutely.
That would have been funny if they're that trivial that they're like, let's knock the market cap down. Did you see that chart? Like there's some external scorecard for the bros over there. That would be hilarious.
Hey, look, you know me. I'm all for connecting dots that aren't there. I'm a tinfoil hat card member here, so I wouldn't be surprised there. But like I said, I did do a tweet kind of about this, and I said something like, it's no coincidence that when Bitcoin passes gold's market cap as the 5th largest asset, that we find out that Google wants to, sorry, I said gold, and passes Google as the 5th largest market cap, that Google tries to ban self-custody. It's really poetic. And then like an hour later, the price dumped. So who knows?
Well, and ironically, I can use Google to learn about self-custody. So
for reals. And perfect segue, Terence. Let's get into the culture, because I know we're going to have a good conversation here. This one's going to be fun. So we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, guys, I forgot to bring this up real quick, so I'm going to bring it up real quick. Apparently, Google took an 8%. Why is this here? An 8% stake in Bitcoin miner TeraWulf yesterday as well. It's part of a $3.7 billion deal. So, interesting stuff. I was going to mention that earlier, but whatever.
They wanted to stack on the low.
Yeah, let's keep it moving. Terence.
Yes.
You've been doing great work, man. Let's talk about your Bitcoin journey here. I'm going to try to find a video so people can connect who you are, and they've probably seen one of your videos here.
Yeah, if you just scroll down the main profile there, I just released one yesterday. There you go. You click into that. That's going viral about Bitcoin mining.
All right, there you go. So, Terence, you were on the show, years ago now.
I think so, yeah, a couple years ago.
Maybe it's like 2 years ago now, and maybe
it was
longer.
right when I released my book, so I think, just about 2 years ago.
And you started doing these just like talking about Bitcoin on your skateboard. And they've gone mega viral, bro. Like let's just start with how did this idea even come up? Like, did you just impromptu just start skating and record a video with your iPhone? How'd this come about?
Well, we all know, Eric V. Stacks, right? Who used to
Yeah.
walk around his marijuana farm or whatever and do his videos. I think he's now in Florida with Breedlove. But I just thought, first time I watched it, I was like, why is he walking around? Like it made no sense. There was no reason for him to walk around. He was just talking about Bitcoin, but it was just different and it was interesting than all of the regular content we see with, people sitting behind a desk, right? Not everyone has your voice or energy that you two have. So it's like a lot of them get a little stilted. And I skateboard all the time, every day, everywhere, as much as I can. And it's often when I'm skateboarding that I'm thinking about Bitcoin, where I'm synthesizing all of my thoughts about it and what it means for the world and how much I want to spread the news and, evangelize it. And I thought, well, wait a minute, maybe this would be a good way. Like, there's no reason for me to be on the skateboard talking about Bitcoin, but it's just different. It's visually somewhat interesting. And so I just started doing it, and that's it. And I'm, probably saying the same thing that a lot of other people are saying, but I'm saying it in my way. And then, bringing in some of my Hollywood experience, I'm adding lots of cinematic music and graphics, and, I edit the hell out of it just because I have fun.
There was this guy a couple of years ago on Twitter, and it's funny because I'm having a very Fleetwood Mac coded morning.
Yeah.
There was this guy who became super viral for drinking cranberry juice and skateboarding down to Dreams in the background. You're literally like that guy, but evangelizing Bitcoin, which is super cool. And I would say adding a lot more value to this world than, a guy drinking cranberry juice.
That was a banger video, though.
It was a banger video.
It's really more because of Fleetwood Mac, but anyways, that's right. A totally different rabbit hole here. Terence, I do, like I said, we had a good segue here about self-custody, and I'm getting yelled at here in the chat. It's like, you guys always say the self-custody, you never talk about how to self-custody. Guys, we've done whole shows on this. We constantly do it.
Yeah, you've done the whole explanation.
I've done it.
I
used to do it like,
it's not our fault that you don't watch every day.
Yeah, exactly. I used to do this like every 2 or 3 weeks. I would come back and do basically the same thing. So I'm glad Terence is here, because I won't have to do it. Terence could maybe run through it. So maybe start with the importance of self-custody, and maybe you can give some tips to the people out there.
Yeah, so it's important to step back with first principles and just understand that, Bitcoin, all 21 million Bitcoin live on the time chain. It doesn't move. It's all sitting there. Right. So really, when we say self-custody, all we're doing is we just need to have the keys that control the Bitcoin so that we can identify where ours is and how we can reassign that value to someone else. That's it. And so when you think of those terms, if we don't have the keys to reassign that value on that big 21 million brick wall that is cemented, will never grow, will never crumble, then someone else is doing it for us, and they're just giving us a ledger, and it violates the whole ethos of why Satoshi gave us Bitcoin in the first place, which was to have a peer-to-peer money without the need to trust a financial institution. And that's important for us to think about. So all these little devices, we always talk about, a Trezor, a Bitbox, a Jade, whatever, they all do the same thing. They're cheap little random generators. That's the first thing that they do. All they do is they give true entropy, because you think you want to come up with your own words or you want to come up with a song. We're terrible at that. We have biases. So you need somehow to have true entropy. Now, if you want to be totally based, yes, you can look at lava lamps, you can flip coins, you can roll dice. But these devices are really fantastic. They're great. They're unconnected from the internet, and you can just pick words, one from all 2048 words. In 2013, we came up with this BIP39 word list, which made it a lot easier, because before that, rather than having 12 simple words, we had to remember 128 ones and zeros, or actually technically 132 because of the checksum, and 256 ones and zeros. Well, that's terrible, and you can make mistakes. I've done that. I have stamped before 132 ones and zeros on metal, and I've made a mistake. I've gone back to reconfigure that wall, and it's like 1 0 should have been a 1. So this is why we have the words. Once you come up with the words, those words create a master seed word. You have one master seed word, and that's it. Those are those 12 words. So anything that happens downstream, it doesn't matter. You can lose all your devices. It doesn't matter. Those 12 words, you just buy any one of 20 different devices anywhere in the world. There it is. Boom. You punch in your words. You have that master seed. Why is that master seed important? Because that master seed creates your private key and your public key. The private key is just your secret. That's your secret that you don't give to anyone else, that allows you to reassign that Bitcoin on that big 21 million brick wall. The public one just creates infinite addresses, slightly over 4.6 billion to be exact, but you get all these addresses, more than you could ever create if you were creating hundreds of addresses every single day your entire life. And that's what you want, because you don't want to reuse the same address. But that's it. That's all self-custody is. So, similar to email, I don't want someone to have my SMPT secret password when I'm sending email. I don't want someone to send my email pretending they're me, but I want to be able to give my address to people to send me. And that's it. And that's how simple self-custody is. So you want to get one of these devices because you need entropy. You need to create those 12 or 24 words. And two, you need your digital signature. Those 12 words prove it's you, your digital signature, to send without revealing your 12 words, without sending your 12 words anywhere on the internet. You never input your words anywhere. No manufacturer needs your words. Trezor, Ledger, they don't need your words. You don't need to input your words to update anything. Those words are your secret. And if you can keep a secret, you can keep Bitcoin. If you can't keep a secret, you should not have Bitcoin. That's it.
I love it. No, hold on. Great breakdown, Terence. That was awesome here.
I've never heard anyone explain it that simply. And I love when we have guests who can explain something that, I've always found a little bit complicated in a very simple way, because I think the more easy to digest these topics are, the more incentivized people are to actually do self-custody and not just learn about it, because now you've just made the learning part so much easier. So thank you for that. I learned something new. I couldn't understand it as simple as you just explained it.
Well, it says simply Bitcoin, so I figured I'll explain it in a simple way, because
that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah, the based retard way gets a little complicated, but yeah, if people are interested, they can go to the highlights tab on my X profile. I mean, I have dozens of videos, but I have one called 12 Words. And people, I've sent that to complete noobs, brand new people, never heard of Bitcoin, have watched that, and it explains exactly how it works. And you can set up your wallet immediately, whether it's single sig or multi-sig. And I do constantly promote multi-sig, because I think multi-sig is the best way to, keep scrolling down there. Yeah, it's all real estate inflation. Bitcoiners are crazy. Next one.
Bitcoiners are crazy. But I love that.
There we go. 12 Words. That one. I'll
drop it in the chat. I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay, great.
For everyone.
Yeah. When people DM me or I get new clients that want to learn, before I send them into deep down the rabbit hole, I say, just watch this. And then they go, oh my God, I totally get it. And they immediately want to do self-custody. They immediately want to get off Gemini or Coinbase. And because that's really my mission. My mission is to get people's Bitcoins off exchanges and into self-custody. And you don't have to pay me. I will tell you 100% how to do that, 100% for free. You can pay me if you want me to be a key agent, because that's what I do over at the Bitcoin Advisor. I will hold one of the 3 keys if you don't feel comfortable holding all the keys. But if you do, hold them. Open source, free. You don't need me.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, that was great. So guys, check it out on Twitter. And then I do want to kind of pivot a little bit. Like you are talking about self-custody, and I'm notorious on the show for giving boomers a lot of shit on the show. And you're like, I give them shit too. But you did say something interesting earlier, and you're like, orange pilling boomers is the easiest ones to orange pill. So what you mean by that?
So a lot of boomers, first of all, they've been through a number of crises, right? Not only, we all went through COVID, and that really opened up our eyes. And, some people were fortunate enough to understand what happened with the great financial crisis, or maybe with their parents. Boomers have been through several crises. They went through, they've been through lots of crises, and as well, they start to become more skeptical. They start to become more conservative. They start to not trust the politicians. They also are very aware of inflation. You don't have to explain inflation to them. They're like, yeah, I remember when a beer cost $1.50 or whatever. So one, they get it when you start to explain to them the solution, right? Like a lot of young people don't see the problem. Many of us see the problem. Many people that we're talking to do, but a lot of others don't. They're too distracted by Instagram and TikTok, and they're told that this is a, desire-based economy, and you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you need this product, you need to join this service, you need to hustle, you need to grind, you need to do that. And they fall into that. The boomers didn't know that. The boomers were like, oh, I'm going to just get my one career. I'm going to make enough money. I can now have a picket fence. I can take 3 vacations a year, have 4 kids. I mean, right? You look at The Simpsons, right? The Simpsons are the boomers, right? I don't even think Homer's very good at the nuclear plant, but they can go do whatever they want. He's not even working half the time. And it's like these boomers grew up with like Bugs Bunny cartoons, right? Like, hi, I'm Elmer J. Fudd. I'm a millionaire. I own a mansion and a yacht. Well, tell me a millionaire out there who can own a mansion and a yacht. We just know $1 million is nothing nowadays. Right now, it's $1 billion. And so when boomers were kids, they didn't even know the word trillion was a word. So now you go to them, in addition to the fact that they see gold. And boomers are old enough, most of them, or they might have been kids, but are old enough to know that when we went off the gold standard. So they're that much closer, at least the ones that I'm talking to. So when I talk to them and I explain to them that it's digital gold and that's the advancement, they're like, oh, yeah, I used to have a fax machine. Now I have PDF software. That's the upgrade. I don't need my fax machine anymore. I have PDF software. Oh, yeah, I remember having a landline with a cord that, strangled around my neck. I don't need that anymore. I have an iPhone. I have email. I don't need snail mail. So you can go through these analogies with them and they're like, okay, I get it. And the biggest thing that they went through, of course, many young kids went through it too, but some were just born into it, is that the boomers saw the internet. The boomers are like, oh, the internet changed everything. Like they had decades or a decade, or I don't know, maybe I'm mixing up my ages, but they had time where the internet wasn't there for them, right? Or maybe when they were in school, they didn't have a word processor where they had a typewriter. So they're that much closer to understanding that, oh, this is just an improvement. This is an upgrade. This is just a savings technology. And that's the way I approach it with boomers. I say, do not think of this as an investment at all, because an investment implies you have to take risk. There's 0 risk. 1 Bitcoin will always be 21 million Bitcoin because we know the denominator. So 1 Bitcoin will always be 1 divided by 21 million. What is fiat? 1 divided by what? 37 trillion, 38? We don't know. So it's just a savings technology. So now you want to save. Guess what? You've worked super hard your whole life as a boomer. You've already done the work. You've done your proof of work. You've worked as hard as you could in this debasing system that's diluting and devaluing you. Now you just want to preserve it and save it. Well, here it is. We have a fixed measurement. Here's the ruler. Here's the thermometer. And nothing's going to be added to it. There's no new belt notches that are going to be added. So save in this fixed asset that everyone wants. And the boomers that I've talked to get it. They're like, that makes complete sense. Sign me up.
Hold on. Everyone's saying I need to do this one.
Now listen, that's called motherfucking bars.
Terence, that was great, man. And look, I only thought it was interesting. Like my dad's a boomer, and he's still kind of like a gold bug, silver bug. He knows I'm in Bitcoin. He's got a little Bitcoin, but he's not like obsessed with it like I am. But that wasn't a hard chill for me. It was more like he saw I was excited about it, and he's like, okay, I'll throw a little money at it. Just like It is what it is. Now, getting my dad to be like a full blown,
Maxi.
Yeah, Maxi cyberpunk. Like that's not going to happen. But
well, does your dad own bonds?
He might have some. I don't know. I haven't asked
Almost
him.
all boomers have some bonds. And,
Yeah.
it's like when I sit down with them and put it down on paper and I'm like, look, here's bonds that have basically been losing for the last 10 to 15 years. Maybe you're getting 2 to 3%, but against inflation, you're not. Now let's look at Bitcoin. Let's look at Bitcoin's 10-year CAGR of 86%. 10 years, 86%, meaning on average every year it's been going up 86%. Like they can't argue with math, and a lot of boomers don't want to argue with math. So it's like, okay, let's take some of these bonds and move them over here as well. And maybe this is slightly older than boomers. Maybe that's, what is it called? The silent generation or whatever.
Yeah.
At a certain point, mom, dad, some of this money, let's take a small fraction of your bonds. Some of that's going to probably pass to me someday, right? Like you're not going to need to use all of this, some of these bonds down here that are earning nothing and in fact losing. So since it's going to me, would you mind converting some of that to Bitcoin for me? Because that's what I would care about. And then just show them the math. Anyways, that's literally what I did with both my parents. And I took a portion of their bonds. I helped them. We used Unchained, so it's multi-sig, and moved it into Bitcoin. And now they look at it, because this was several years ago, and they're like, holy crap, it's like doubled, tripled.
They're like, dang, I should have sold all the bonds. Yeah.
Well, that's what they now say. Yeah.
Yeah. I think thinking about my dad, like he's very, how do I say this? Anti-authoritarian, like not trustworthy of the government. So I think he's just like a hardcore gold bug. Now that I remember, I don't think we've had treasury bond conversations. He's just like, I like gold. Gold is cool. Anyways, you did bring up multi-sig a couple of times. And so I want to ask you, for someone out here, like in the chat, maybe they heard the self-custody pitch for the first time here on the show because they're kind of new. What would you recommend for them? Are you just like a 0 to 1 go multi-sig? Do you think that just a single pass phrase, or sorry, a single seed with a pass phrase, is that good enough? Like, do you tailor this to depending on who you're talking to?
Yeah, exactly. Like any type of financial product or security model, it depends who you're talking to. For the most part, if you're someone who can't sleep at night, in that you think, if something happens to me, if I get run over by a bus, or if you're older, how is my Bitcoin going to get to those who I love? How's it going to get to my kids, my spouse, my girlfriend, whoever? If you don't know, and if you don't have a plan, and you're worried that they won't find your treasure map or understand your, secrets of how to, go to Aunt Edna's barn and under the yellow tractor where we first kissed, there's a clue, and then that clue gives them the words. If you're worried about that, multi-signature solves that. And what people have to remember is multi-signature doesn't mean your Bitcoin is going to anyone else. You are just distributing the security. And so rather than having one key to your Bitcoin house, you have 3 keys, and only 2 of those keys are needed to open up that house. And this way you can okay, now this sounds crazy to Bitcoiners. I was talking to a major OG Bitcoiner who now does this, and he couldn't believe it. We are separating money from the banks, right? But with a multi-signature setup, you can have one of your keys. You can literally just have the words on a piece of paper in a bank vault. And you'd be like, what the hell? Like, we're separating Bitcoin from, and now we're at well, they can't do anything with one. A bad bank employee, an evil bank employee can't do anything if they find one. A termite guy who's cleaning, by the way, when termite companies go into banks, they open up every safety deposit box. They see everything. And they termite all that. They can't do anything with one. And you could also throw a honeypot on there. You can throw whatever is significant, but not going to change your life. You can put $1,000 on that. And if $1,000 ever leaves the single sig version of those 12 words in the bank, or that key in the bank, it's been compromised. But they can never do anything, because where are they going to get the other key that's over here in Australia, or this key that you've put in New York or whatever? But you separate the security of your keys, and you separate the backups that solve so many problems. And the easy solution is to use any one of these collaborative custodians, where you simply have a platform. So for the most part, you just are typing in and you're going straight to Unchained, or to Swan, or to Thea, or to Casa. You could use Nunchuck. You could use Sparrow. There's plenty of open source ways to do it, where you have an enterprise hold a key. They have an enterprise key built into their software, so you don't even see it. But when you birth your Bitcoin vault, a vault just means a wallet with 3 keys. When you birth your vault, it's birthed with the software of that platform of Unchained. And then you have your 2 keys, and you can separate your 2 keys. You can give your wife, your girlfriend, 1 key. Hey, if something happens to me, you're not going to find my key. You have your one that you can't do anything with one, but per my will, or by trust or instructions, you talk to Unchained, and Unchained says, oh yeah, we see he's dead. He didn't just go on vacation. They are allowed up to 6 months to make sure that you just didn't get in a fight and, go on a hike. And it's like, okay, your 2 keys, you can now access my Bitcoin. And so that solves a lot of problems for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, let's clarify here. Probably give it to your wife and not your girlfriend. But hey, do what you want to do.
Well, if you're a Bitcoiner, you're going to get girlfriends here really soon, right? At the end of the year here, everyone's going to have a couple girlfriends.
Girlfriends, give them to your wife
or your children.
Right. And
yes.
Well,
you can time lock for your children. That's the brilliant part, right? You give your children keys that don't even access the Bitcoin until they turn a certain age, because you set up the block number. That's the whole genius part. And you can do that with the multi-sig. What if you were to lose all 3 keys? Well, you can have a time lock that, oh, great, in this certain amount of time, this other key that we haven't even used, this 4th key, this 5th key, or this 4th, 5th, 6th new set of multi-signature keys become valid. So that's just another genius way to have like a backup, like sort of like an oh shit system if you lose all 3 keys.
Yeah, I think the challenge here for most boomers is the technological aspect, and that's where people like you come in handy, because then they don't have to think about all of that. They don't have to go on Sparrow. They don't have to like understand
100.
all of the technology behind it, because I know that was the big challenge with, for example, my parents and orange pilling them. They're just like, we just don't understand. Like, this is too much technology for us. Like, I just call my stockbroker and tell him what to do, and they just like, they make it happen. It's like, they don't understand you know, how complicated this can all get.
I mean, we're going to laugh in the future, right? Because we're sort of at that period now where, like, when the internet first started and we're all like running our own servers and doing dial up and HTML, you know, and it's like they won't need to do that. So you're totally right, Sophie. You know, we're learning all of this tech, which is great.
Yeah, we're all learning together, and I think that a lot of like the criticism, at least for like from us, like to boomers or whatever, isn't so much that they won't be orange pilled. I get it. I completely agree with you. They understand it very quickly because of all the adversity and the wisdom that they've gained throughout the years. I think
100.
where people like us from our generation get frustrated is A, you know, this is the generation that created most of the problems, and B, they're not all in the way that we want them to be all in. I mean, look at us complaining about Scott Bessent, like doing this like little bit of FUD, like while, you know, the administration is making all these moves to actually further Bitcoin. And you know, we're always going to complain. Like that's like the dark side of our generation.
100%.
Our generation, we are complainers. It's never going to be good enough until we reach our actual goal of 100% hyper Bitcoinization and we get our way fully. But that's not the way the world works. And so it's really great that, again, people like you exist to kind of further the conversation and be the liaison between the two very stubborn generations who, you know, want one thing to happen but can't seem to always get their way.
Yeah, Anthony Jones says Sophie is always right. So I agree.
Yeah, I'm getting replaced here, guys. You know, it's hard having such a low IQ and being on the show next to Sophie. But anyways, Terence, I do want to hit one more topic that I know you said you wanted to hit on. It is kind of going to connect all the dots here.
Okay.
And it is the idea of retiring on your Bitcoin. And I know you're like, I can hit on this. And I'm like, we used to touch on this like every single day. It wasn't every day. It was every like couple of weeks. And Nico was getting lazy on me here. But what is your idea on, retiring on your Bitcoin? I mean, we just saw this week, or was this last week? I think it was last week, actually. Trump kind of announced that he will allow Bitcoin into people's 401k. So this idea is getting across. It's not just for us, you know, savage, hardcore Bitcoiners. This is, I think, becoming like a mainstream conversation right now is, can you actually retire on Bitcoin? Like, is this smart to do? You know, how long am I going to wait? Like, how much do I need to own to retire on Bitcoin? So what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, so first of all, related to the 401k thing, like, so already people can own Bitcoin in their retirement. That has been available. It just hasn't been easy. And now it's going to be easy for like the plan providers, if you have an employer with a 401k, to do that. But like already today, if you have a Roth IRA, if you have a traditional IRA, you can own Bitcoin in those, and you can hold the keys to it. That's another key, right? Like I don't work for Unchained, but like Unchained, you can hold your own key and you can have a Roth or a traditional IRA. So I have a lot of clients that go into that, a lot of boomers that go into that. As far as retiring, like, so I have a couple thoughts. Like on one hand, it's like, you know, you have to do the proof of work, first of all, to be able to get Bitcoin in the first place. And so it's like a lot of, going back to the boomer conversation, a lot of people that aren't sure if they could retire yet. Maybe they're getting close, or maybe they thought, oh, I can't retire for another 10 years. If they've been working hard and they've been here for at least an epoch, you know, preferably 2 epochs through Bitcoin, they can now confidently, with Bitcoin, if they've been stacking during those 2 epochs, say, you know what, I can finally say it, like, yeah, I can retire. Like, I wasn't sure if I could retire, but now I can. Because people in the fiat land, and they go to these, you know, wealth managers and these registered investment advisors, and they're like, oh, well, you know, if you withdraw 4% of your dollars per year, and we're going up this much amount in the stock market, that doesn't work. Those models are broken because of inflation. Inflation just decimates and completely distorts all of those models. And so people that are living on a fiat standard, they don't think that they can ever retire. And in many ways they can. It's like, why do you go to like Home Depot and Walmart and, you know, just see these people that are like, you know, 87 years old walking around the aisles trying to point where the bathrooms are. So it's on one hand, it's great because people that have been getting close and wondering if they could retire can very confidently retire with Bitcoin, because we just see the numbers. It's just math. Those that now want to think about retirement or retiring early, it's kind of like, well, philosophically, what is retirement for you? Like, is retirement really just saying, look, I now control my time. I don't have to give my time to anyone else. I can wake up and say what I want to do. I can be more selective. I can choose to do what I want to do. Hey, I can do this Simply Bitcoin show rather than, go work for some insurance company. Or in my case, I can go skateboard around the beach and make Bitcoin videos. It's like Bitcoin gives us that confidence because we now can see how much that not only we hurdle inflation, but how much we actually grow our wealth. But again, I go back to, we have to provide value. We have to solve problems for people. And some people have to still solve that in the fiat world. So it's like Bitcoin, again, a more measured response, Opti, and Bitcoin isn't going to just suddenly make you rich. Bitcoin isn't a get rich scheme. It's a get rich for sure solution, right?
I love that.
So we'll get there faster. And with that, we're now seeing the financialization of Bitcoin. And so all of these products are coming, the lending products, you guys have let in, collateral, there's going to be credit, there's going to be leverage, there's going to be things people don't want, but we've already got credit cards, we've got, debits, we've got mortgages, right? And there's home equity things, there's Horizon, there's Savannah. Now we've got Milo mortgages. Like, you can do anything on Bitcoin. It's all there. There aren't like 50 options, but they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, as we kind of were saying earlier, it really does feel like Bitcoin hasn't fully gotten that, like, quote unquote iPhone moment. Like, we haven't found the quote unquote killer app. Like, we have the killer use cases of, like, number go up technology, but there's not that one thing here. And I don't think it's ever going to be like one thing per se. As we're saying, there's a bunch of products coming out that are filling different niches and different roles here, but there hasn't been something that is just like taking the world by storm yet. And that just goes to show, like what Sophie said earlier, like, we are still early in this thing. Terrence, you were just explaining, like, all this stuff is still new. We are still working through it. We still haven't gotten, the MacBook or the iPhone or whatever, comparison you want there. Like, all the best products we have right now, we'll probably look back in like 10 years and be like, I can't believe I stored my, life savings in that one.
Oh, we're going to laugh. We're going to laugh so
look back
hard.
and be like, what?
Why were we
stamping
doing? These things and I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to go away, but yeah.
I think we're probably on like the Nokia level.
We're playing Snake. We're playing Snake here.
Snake, perhaps approaching the.
It's predictive text. I got to hit it 3 times. S.
Yep, exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. All right, Terrence. Well, we are at the end of the show. We did go a little long,
see ya.
but I like this conversation. So, Terrence, I do want to give you one last moment. What's the final thing you would like to give to the audience? Last final words, and then plug your socials so people can find you.
Okay, yeah, I'm at Proof of Money. In Bitcoin, I'm just a Bitcoin educator. I just want to educate. I want to teach the principles, the attributes, and the properties of Bitcoin. I love talking to complete noobs, and I love talking to family members and friends of Bitcoiners. If you have someone who you've been trying to orange pill and hasn't been, working for whatever reason, sometimes they just need to hear from someone else. I love doing that. I will shill this for a second because it's done pretty well. I did write a book called Proof of Money. I don't keep any of the profits, and if people can't afford the book, I will gladly buy it for them. Just DM me. It's, but I think it's a great orange pilling book. That's it. Just reach out to me. I love talking to Bitcoiners. Oh, I do a daily, Monday through Friday, I do a daily show on Spaces. We've got a lot of great based Bitcoiners. In fact, I just left it to come to this. Max Kaiser was there today. We've got Jeff Booth tomorrow. But I think we're competing with your time, Opti and
that's
Sophie.
where all
so
our
I'm not,
viewers are.
so I won't.
You're at your Spaces.
Yeah. So, you know what? I don't need to promote it, but I think but anyways, we're there every morning for a couple hours.
Let's go. Well, Terrence, it was so good to have you back on the show, man. Keep killing it. Keep making the skateboard videos. Keep doing the good work that you're doing. Really appreciate you coming on. And everyone out there, guys, you already know the deal. Go outside, get some sun, eat some good food, call your loved ones, stack more sats. The Bitcoin is on sale right now. And we'll be back tomorrow, roughly 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. All right. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Much love. And also, if you're watching the show, help us get to 100K. We're at what, like less than 1,000 subs on YouTube for 100K. We're super excited for that. On that note, I will see you tomorrow. I'll be back then.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.